June 5th, 1917, Walter Price and 30,000 other St. Louis men line up at their local polling places, not to vote, but to register for the draft. Chilling tales of the Great War have dominated the headlines for 3 years. Now the U.S. will join in. August 22nd, Walter gets his notice. He's in love with Bridget Dunn, but the sweet promise of family life is put on hold. He will go to war. It's crazy, but the training camps are already maxed out with the first 500,000 draftees. He waits 8 months. Finally, on April 29th, 1918, he boards the train for Camp Funston, Kansas. One of the 28,000 men of the Midwestern 89th Division, the Rolling W. Private Price, just turned 25, is a tall, strong man with big hands, a carpenter, so he is assigned to the 314th Combat Engineers. The 250 men of Company E are his family now. June comes, and the men of the Rolling W board trains for New York. Official accounts tell us that crowds gather and cheer along the way. On Long Island, as Walter awaits his ship, he hears the news. The English have just destroyed 2 German U-boats off the coast nearby. This is real. He watches for U-boats as they cross the Atlantic. 10 days of dread, followed by 7 days of regrouping in Liverpool. Next, Walter is herded aboard a packet ship, jammed shoulder to shoulder with his comrades across the English Channel to France. More regrouping. Then they pile onto trains, 40 men to a boxcar, for the 300 miles east to the Reinal training area. During July, Walter Price is billeted in a friendly French village. He tastes French wine and marvels at the cool summer. But the training is more intense now, with live ammo. Wearing a steel helmet gives Walter a neck ache, and his gas mask gives him claustrophobia. The day comes. On August 4th, trucks line up to take the 89th Division 60 miles to the front. Walter learns that the infamous Western Front is a 440-mile gash in the landscape running east-west between the Swiss border and the North Sea. He is horrified to hear that there have already been more than 2 million casualties along this man-eating line. The Rolling W takes its position on a 3-mile segment of the front, preparing for the massive First Army operation in which 600,000 Americans will storm a strategic 25-mile stretch in the San Miguel region. The territory ahead is all trenches and barbed wire. The sweet air of French summer turns into the stink of mustard gas and death. And it starts raining. At 1 a.m. on September 12, the battle begins. Under heavy fire, the 314th Engineers immediately go to work, repairing bridges and widening the road to allow food, supplies, and support to get through. In 2 days, the region is reclaimed. The 89th has advanced 7 miles and lost 1,000 men. Holding the line into October costs them another 1,300 men. In spite of the fighting, the Engineers complete their lovely road. Now they mobilize for the big one, Meuse-Argonne. It is more of the same, really. Muddy trenches, thickets of barbed wire, constant shelling with high explosives, and airborne gas attacks. As fast as the retreating Germans destroy bridges and roads, the engineers reconnoiter and rebuild, clearing mines and booby traps as they go. From October 20th to November 11th, the 89th claw their way all of 15 miles, and when the dust clears, they have suffered nearly 4,000 casualties. That includes the death of Walter's best buddy, killed by his side during a scouting mission. Armistice, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. For Walter Price and the Americans, the war has lasted 2 months. They are now part of the Army of Occupation. Can they go home? Not so fast. There aren't enough ships to transport 2 million soldiers back across the Atlantic. Thanksgiving passes, Christmas, winter sets in. The engineers keep busy, and camped near Keilberg, Germany, they repair roads, make new signs, print maps, get the water running, and turn the lights back on. In May, finally, Walter and his comrades are transported to Brittany, France, and the battleship Montana, heading home. In Boston, they board a train for Camp Devens for quarantine and delousing. Then another train back to Camp Funston, Kansas for demobilization. On the way, they pass through St. Louis, but vote against having a parade because let's get this thing over with. I'm telling you this because I'm the 5th of Walter's 27 grandchildren. I knew him as slow-moving and white-haired, with gout-swollen elbows, forever the carpenter, finding his joy in straight lines, squared corners, and level surfaces. His military service was a mystery, till I found an old book full of maps and charts about every battle and each division in the war. Suddenly, my old grandpa's youth had come to visit me. He let me walk in his footsteps through months of dread, months of horror, months of labor before he could resume his life. We are connected now. I know that young man a little better, Private Price, not a hero, but a man who did heroic work. And I know why Armistice Day, November 11th, was his sacred holiday, deserving the best bottle of whiskey he could afford. This is Susan Price telling you a story from the shore of Lake Ontario.